So I want to talk about providing opportunities through astronomy to not the underserved, but the unserved, those people who, most of the people around the world, the students around the world who would never have an opportunity to take advantage of these programs that are available, won't even know about them in developing countries and in other places. So astronomy is everywhere. Young people are doing astronomy just about everywhere. Everyone is interested in it. This is in Kathmandu, Nepal, where a huge line forms when there's a telescope set up. Astronomy in Afghanistan, these girls are looking at the sun through eclipse glasses. This is difficult to do even before the Taliban takeover. Now it's really impossible without a fair amount of risk. People are still doing it that I know there, though. And in Nigeria, this is opportunity for young girls to study STEM because they don't even realize that this is something that they can do. This is an organization that I've worked with for years in Nigeria who provide these opportunities to do something that they never realized was something that was allowed for them because they're girls of very patriarchal society. So there are a lot of ways in which opportunities are denied. They're able to do it if they choose to, but it just is never presented to them. So these are children in northern Nigeria, the same organization, and they're doing astronomy here. You can see they're having a really good time with this. This is a STEM camp they set up, but the STEM camp is in this container in a refugee camp. These are refugees, internally displaced people. The students there, you can see they're inspired by what is going on, but they would otherwise never have that opportunity. So even if they're very bright, when they leave the camps, they won't have had that inspiration that those of us get much of the time, a chance to look through a telescope and have that aha moment. It makes a big difference in children's lives. So these opportunities can make a really big difference. They can change lives. They made this solar powered, so it will be sustainable. For those in rural Ethiopia, this is an astrobus. They bring astronomy to the people. Space and astronomy, space science are very big in Ethiopia. They use it quite a bit, and they're able to bring it into the classrooms. And again, this is not an ongoing program, but it's a spark for a lot of those bright young minds that otherwise don't have that chance to be inspired to do something like this when they get the chance. Other places are even more difficult. This is a classroom in Rwanda, and studying astronomy. They likely don't have any other labs of any kind. Here in Arusha, Tanzania, and this is part of a program I've worked with for many years, since near the beginning, and this is for bringing astronomy into the classroom, teaching the teachers to use it, teaching them how to critically think, and some teaching methods through astronomy, which they all have available no matter where they are. This is a classroom in Tanzania again. And in Libya, these girls, this is actually not just meant to be a girls' school, but in most of the world, the young people interested in astronomy, it's primarily girls for a reason I've never been able to figure out. They formed astronomy clubs in middle schools in 5 different cities. They've had war, they've had ISIS, civil conflict. And so their futures are not the brightest most of the time, but there's an organization that formed these astronomy clubs there, and they weren't able to get telescopes. So we raised money for them to get telescopes, 5 of them that are there now, and probably more. There was going to be the first National Astronomy Festival ever before the floods washed away some towns in the north. It's a huge natural disaster. It's one more thing for them, but they'll bounce back from that. I connected them with astronaut Nicole Stott. This is the first astronaut they've talked to since Yuri Gagarin visited. So it's been a while. And that inspiration can make a big difference. And the feedback we got was enormous. This is Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico doesn't, it has a lot of support. It has a lot of areas that are not doing real well. But again, the floods from the hurricanes that came through wiped out some of the schools there. And because of contact I had from someone there, we brought 20 telescopes for 20 schools there, amongst the poorest ones on the islands. And, the picture says more than I can. This is now there's an organization there does astronomy that's helping, and a big science group too for Puerto Rican native scientists wherever they are in the country. So astronomy is the same everywhere, and we share eclipse glasses when we travel to eclipses. I go to a lot of different places for that. Someplace in Africa there. This was in Turkey. These are students in Egypt. And I took this of sharing the glasses with somebody's pet there just for fun. But this is more than just having some fun. This is in Uganda, and these students are just looking at the sun and doing that. That's something that people just don't ordinarily do. And that in itself, as you can see, can be inspiring. These students came from Tanzania, rural Tanzania, to a place where one of my colleagues was there with eclipse glasses for an upcoming eclipse. And the reason they did this on an off day, they got a bus and the whole class came, was they said, we want to be scientists too. And that's what this is to them. It's a chance to be a scientist. Whatever you may think of it, it's inspiration. And you can see what this means here. That's Chuck Reilly, who was the colleague who was doing these things in the country and teaching some of the older students there. But training the teachers is the main thing. This is how you really spread the word. And there is more of that going on now. This was a training session several years ago, but an offshoot of this was Mount Meru Astronomical Observatory. And this is a place that is really getting going now as training teachers. They have field trips for students and so on. I'll be taking a group there next year to visit that, and it's right on the edge of a wildlife reserve, so you get to see wildlife as well. In fact, you have to watch out for it. One of the things I don't usually have to do in astronomy is to watch out for elephants walking through my yard at night, but it's something you have to watch out for there. Astronomy, so it's one of the things that's accessible. Now, this is a Peace Corps class in Tanzania, and somebody contacted me about adding astronomy to what they were doing in this laboratory. These are students there that are getting a chance at science, and you can see on these signs here that they're saying why they want to study science, because of who they want to be, what they want to be when they grow up. And astronomy is just one of the ways to introduce that. It's invaluable in that respect, and there are so many different ways that it connects with other things. Now, one of the ways we can make that accessible to others is through remote observing. We've started a program. We had a pilot program so far, and we need to get the people to help do this. There's always more work to do than we can manage. An educational program using remote telescopes in Las Cumbres Observatory, which some of you may know. This is a group that took part in this first program. They are students in an astronomy club in Benghazi, Libya. They don't get an opportunity to do anything like this. And the purpose of this is to give them a research type experience. And they just happen to have supernova in M101 at the time, did photometry and recorded a light curve for it. This is a one-time thing for them, but I've done things like this a lot before, and it can make a big difference. Now, I don't think any of them are astronomy majors, but they're all fascinated by astronomy, and they're working in other fields related to technology. A lot of it is IT, and this is just a way to delve deeper into processes and methodologies. So this is why we use the term equity. This group, you there probably know about this, but equality is giving everybody the same thing. Equity is giving them the same opportunity. So it's not giving them something that somebody else wouldn't otherwise get. But, most of the world's students just don't have the same opportunities we do in other places. And it doesn't take a lot to make such a big difference. And I'll show some examples of that. Now, here's one place. This is a classroom in Ukraine. There are some that are worse, and most of them are still okay. But even in the schools where everything is all right, there are internally displaced people from the war zone that are living in the gyms, in cafeterias and auditoriums. And this affects everybody there too, even if things aren't happening in their own city. Schools become overcrowded. The men teachers and many of the women are off in the war, but they are still interested in astronomy. Now, while they are doing their schoolwork, they frequently have to 3 or 4 times a day have to go down to bomb shelters, try to continue it there if they can, but otherwise it's just a break. So this is psychologically, there's a psychologist I work with in Ukraine. The children are not, they are really stressed. I mean, it's an extremely difficult thing. So what happened here was that the top 3 pictures there are 3 different cities in Ukraine before the war, and 3 pictures below taken after the war started. It's not like this all the time. There were students there who said, you know, we love astronomy. The lights are being knocked out here. We want to get telescopes to take advantage of that. So we crowdfunded and sent some telescopes. I'm planning a trip with some others to meet the students, including a documentary filmmaker. So that will be available once we get back. Astronomy for the physically disabled. This is something for which there is an awful lot of information, as they're just as interested, just like everybody else. This is a group I've visited in Constantine, Algeria, and they're doing work with various kinds of disabled. We are focusing on the blind and visually impaired. There are a lot of materials here. That's a tactile moon, some books of various kinds that are tactile. Observing, you take a photograph and put it through the swell paper printer, it comes out on something that they can feel what it is. Here is a little bit better object that is actually tactile. This is a planetarium program for the blind and visually impaired. And you hold this in your lap. This is something for which the program itself is, the narration is available. I produced the English one, and the blind can feel their way through it there. But this just needs to get out there more. The problem is not a lack of resources, it's a lack of awareness and distribution. There's even observing for the blind. This person is legally blind, but can still see a little bit through telescopes and so on. And this is also wheelchairs. So we have a program going on now for the blind and low vision, for people to come into the group, learn about what's available. We have somebody working on an amount that makes the telescope accessible to wheelchairs more easily. This group, the thing is, we have people from JPL and from Chandra and Hubble who do astronomy for the blind. There are people I know in Romania, in Syria, in India, and all around the world who are doing this, but most people have never heard of that. So what kind of opportunity do they have? They are excluded simply because of a physical difference that has nothing to do with their intellect or interest in any way whatsoever. And this is something that, if you have interest, I'll put up a URL at the end, and you can come in and join us. This is not for webinars. This is not a one-way thing. This is a chance to interact with the people. The main thing that we found so far is that once people are even aware of this, how do you interact with people who cannot see? And it's very encouraging to hear from the people who are actually doing this. It's actually very easy. If you're doing outreach, the first time you did that, you put out the telescope, and it's a little frightening, but it worked out fine, and this does as well. And I want to finish with what I think is a great cartoon that shows the idea behind Sagan's pale blue dot. in which he talks about how we're traveling through Earth together on spaceship Earth, traveling around through space together on spaceship Earth. And we're just looking out different windows in different directions from that spacecraft. And so astronomy helps you actually understand what Sagan was saying here. Here's my contact information, the organization itself, and astronomy with blind and low vision, if you are interested, is there as well. Contact me anytime.